One.
Okay, hello folks. Well, look, we'll get started. Welcome to this afternoon's introduction to CollabHero. My name's Lynn Hay, Online Learning Innovation Leader, and Tim Claptor, our Online Learning Technology Leader. We're hosting today's session. And I'd just like to begin by saying that I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri, Ngunnawal, Gundungurra and Biripi peoples of Australia, who are the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which CSU's campuses are located and with whom CSU has association. And I pay respect to their elders, both past and present. Anyone who's connected, can you just please double check that you do have your microphone on mute? If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat facility. Just click on the chat button at the bottom, and on the right-hand side of your screen will come up. A chat box will come up. Our presenters today are happy to take questions throughout, given that it's a demonstration, so that questions are being asked at the point of the page or screen that is being discussed at the time. So I'd like to introduce our presenters today. We have Shahid Kamal and Matthew Harrison. They're the CEOs of CollabHero. And Shahid's actually currently completing a Doctor of Medicine postgraduate qual, and he has founded and managed a number of successful technology startups, and CollabHero is one of his most recent projects. Matt is an experienced educator. He's currently coordinating the Autism Intervention and Digital Thinking programs at the University of Melbourne's Graduate School of Education. And he's also very much interested in the creative use of digital technology as teaching and learning tools. So, guys, I'd like to hand over to you now to start your presentation and your demonstration. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I'll begin. Thanks, everyone. Nice to see a good turnout. It's fantastic. All right, so I'm just going to run through some slides. Please, at any time, if you have any questions, I've got the chat window open so I can see as they pop up, and I'll answer them as we go. Okay. Can we see? I'm just changing to full screen now to make sure everyone can see the slides. Can I just get a thumbs up when everyone has a full screen slide deck? It's just, I've got the spinning rainbow wheel at the moment.
Yeah, we're not seeing your full screen yet, Matt.
It's just coming through now, yeah. Sorry, it's just loading.
That's okay.
Just to begin with, anyway, while we're waiting for it to load, CollabHero has been a project I've been involved with for 3 years now. It's been very exciting. Just to introduce ourselves, Shahid and you did a great job earlier, but I guess I came into this project looking for a tool to use with my students where I could manage a large number of students peer assessing each other. And I really had a look around. I couldn't find anything, and Shahid introduced me to his idea, and that's how we got going on this project. I was sold by his sales pitch. I said, right, this is something I could definitely use in my class. And after 3 years of blood, sweat and tears, I think we've got a product we're very proud of now. It's exciting. It looks like my computer is not loading the slides. So Shahid, would you like to load yours?
Yeah,
I
can do
Thank you. You've got the backup slides.
I can do that.
Let's stop.
Yep. Screen. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yep, we've got full screen now. Thank you.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'll just guide you through the slides and show you. You're happy just to hit the next slide? Fantastic. All right. So, so I was explaining, CollabHero has been 3 years in the making. It's been a very exciting product. from my end. We're really looking at making collaborative feedback easy for academics and easy for our students to do and easy for our administrators. So it's really simplifying something that was quite complex before to really get the most out of the tool. So let's go to the next slide. So as I was saying before, two founders. Shad's got a background in medical education, and my background I was a classroom teacher for a number of years, and then I moved into the tertiary side, teacher education, which has been very exciting. Just go to the next slide. So really, CollabHero, just to explain what it is, CollabHero 101, it's a web-based solution to help universities improving both the teaching and the use of resources, namely efficiency of time and money, by facilitating self and peer feedback. So we found there's a heap of research out there saying that, we know that we want our students to develop these soft skills, these 21st century learning skills. We talk about collaboration, sharing of information, communication. But what we really wanted to find a way to be able to make that possible and easy on a larger scale, particularly in online teaching environments. There's been a lot of research saying about limited feedback on work, particularly often from a single source. So we know that our students, I've got currently 34 students for one tutor in a class. And that means each student's only getting a very limited amount of feedback. Usually it's summative feedback at the end of the unit on a large task, especially master's level. They'll do a 5,000 word lit review or a 5,000 word research-based project, and they get that feedback really at the end of the task. We wanted to find a way to able to get students to improve the way they provide feedback to others, the way that they receive feedback in a more efficient manner, a way that we wanted to help our students to improve the way they evaluate feedback, and really wanted our students to be able to implement feedback to improve the quality of their product, or their application skills, or their knowledge. So, self and peer feedback, it's effective. There's a wealth of research out there saying that this is a way to go for our academics. But unfortunately, what's been holding institutions back from engaging in this sort of feedback has been barriers around intimidation of the actual tools, whether or not they're accessible for our academics to use. They can be challenging to administer without the right resources. And we also know there's a lot of tools out there that were designed by people who were primarily in IT, which is great. I've got many friends who work in IT, but they didn't actually meet the needs of the unit. So we know that teachers will very rarely, or lecturers will very rarely change their tasks to fit in with the tool. What they want is a tool that fits in nicely with their learning objectives and their tasks. So a way they can modify rather than having to redesign from the ground up an assessment task. So in order for our students to be able to give quality feedback, we want them to know what quality feedback looks like. We want to be able to give them information at the point of need about how to provide peer feedback or self-feedback. And they need to know how to use the feedback to improve the quality of their work, either the product or their understanding of content knowledge or the application of a skill. Thanks, Joe. Ahead. So we went through a whole host of options people had been using. We looked at University of Sydney, we looked at QUT, we looked at Deakin, and this is Deakin's review. They did something similar to us, but Shadi, just go back to the previous slide. What we actually found from our review of the existing tools was there was key issues around usability, integration, the actual support and guidance from students, the flexibility of the tools to do different types of tasks. And we found in particular, none of the tools, and if you have a look at the work we did with Deakin on the next slide, none of the tools that were prevalently being used to do self and peer feedback in institutions were actually doing everything that people wanted. And we thought this is an area we could really harness, I guess, the key needs and wants of our academics and our students, and design something from the ground up that was meant for particularly the Australian context, the way that we do assessment tasks here, the emphasis on collaboration and group work that we have. So should I just go next slide? So designing for students. it's designed to guide the students. That's something we found really important. A lot of the research says that. A lot of Philip Dawson, Margaret Behrman's work is around students not understanding how to give feedback. So we brought in a best practice guide, and we brought in a workflow that naturally encourages students to actually give high quality feedback on the task. That's one of my colleagues here, John Hattie, did a lot of work on that in education, looking at different types of feedback. And feedback on task and self-regulation was really, we found to be the two that made the biggest difference. So we also had a look with educators as well. We wanted a tool that reduces the workload of academics and teachers by changing their role from the marker to moderator of feedback. This one is, as a lot of the literature has been quite controversial, but we think we've come up with a solution that gets the balance right, where it does shift that initial formative stage to the students, giving that feedback. So by the time it comes back to the academics for summative feedback at the end of the unit, it's been refined, cycles of iteration. We've had questions around intellectual property and plagiarism, that sort of thing. And I think when you look at well-constructed peer feedback, the idea is to help our students to actually learn. It's a learning tool. So I don't think it's really an issue whether students are looking at each other's work before it's submitted, because that's the whole point. Is you want them to have a look at a range of different responses and really consider their work in comparison to someone else's work and think, okay, what areas of strength do they have? What areas of strength do I have? And how can I get the best outcome on this task? And if we align our assessment tasks with the learning outcomes, we know that we will end up with our students actually demonstrating a higher level of achievement at the end. And the last one, administrators, it needs to just work. This is the thing. We need a tool that's simple, straightforward, and integrates into LMS. I don't know about your stuff, but at CSU, but I know in Melbourne, a number of times we will try a tool, and it's just a lot of stuffing around before you even get going. With CollabHero, I said one of my conditions coming on board was it needs to be something that everyone can set up and use in an intuitive way. It needs to be easy to use and needs to be easy to sort of get the outcomes that you want. All right, Shahid, we go. So what does CollabHero look in action? I'll just pause right here and ask if there's any questions or queries. I've tried to keep it quite short because I want to, I think the most exciting bit's looking at the actual tool in action, and then we can talk through some of the design decisions, some of the research underpinning that as we go. Did we have any questions? Hi, Julie. I see you. I don't think we have any.
No, it doesn't sound like it at this stage, Matt. So keep going. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. We might now, I'll let Shahid take over and we'll go from there. And then I can actually might jump in, Shahid, and I'll point out some of our design decisions and how research underpins that.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, hi everyone, just taking over. This is Shahid, and I'll just walk you through the tool because I've been constantly spending all my time designing and building this in the last 3 years. Sometimes it becomes very intuitive for me and I happen to go very quickly. So I'm going to try my best to go very, very slowly and methodically. And if there's any questions, please stop me at any time or clarifications. I'd be happy to pause and walk through it again. And if there's anything that I go too quickly, just let me know as well. So this is a teacher dashboard. So if you log in, this is what you're going to see. All your recent tasks are on top. It gives you a timeline on when submission opens, feedback starts, and feedback releases. This is my dashboard for different units and what trimesters there are. And I can go and see my more assessments and more units, which are later down as well. And then you can get some quick analytics around how many people submitted, what kind
Sorry, Shahid.
Yes.
I'm just seeing the CollabHero slides. I'm not seeing the web window.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
Thanks
So
for doing that.
I see confused faces. That's all right.
That's okay. That's good. Could you point it out? Let me see. Might just have to stop and start again.
Oh, there we go.
Yep. Is it up now?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Sorry about that. I didn't realize I have to change that in Zoom. Yeah, okay. So we can see the main screen now? Yeah, perfect. So just restarting. Yep, so this is a teacher dashboard. So you log in as an academic or a teacher, and this is what you see. All your recent tasks are on top. You can quickly run through them, and it gives you a quick description, a timeline on when submission opens, the feedback starts, and feedback releases. You can go down and you can see all your assessments that are currently going on, or you can click more to see the previous ones, and it gives you a quick overview of what kind of task it is and how many people have submitted, etc. Let's create a new task, and that's the best way to see the use. So I'm just going to click on new assessment, and there's 6 steps to create a new task. Matt, everyone can see okay now? Yeah, okay, great. So this is step 1. You get to choose if it's an individual or a group. Hi, Nicole. Good. Yeah, easier. Thanks for joining, Nicole. So this is just the step 1 of creating an assessment task as an academic. So you come to step 1, you get to decide if it's a group or an individual task. You get to create a unit. So demo to CSU. You put a title. This is a demo description, and then you can also attach a file if you have a PDF with instructions of what the task includes, and then you can choose some learning outcomes as well if it's teamwork and digital literacy. So that's step 1.
Sorry, can I just jump in here?
Yeah.
Just to really point out, a lot of the tools we looked at were either for individuals to give feedback on themselves and other students, or just for groups to give feedback within the group. We wanted to have a tool that you could use for both. So you could have a group task where you have students evaluate the processes within their group. So things like how well they work together, whether the group members are punctual, individual contribution to the task. And you could also review the product of other groups. You could look at things such as, go through a criteria and have a look at a rubric and see whether they've, used APA referencing appropriately. It's a classic example. Individual task and group task, you have to choose between one or the other, but there's no other tool that lets you do both inter-group, so in between groups, and intra-group within the group as well, and check both processes and product. So that's something that we really wanted to develop, was a tool that did this.
Yeah, and then we could decide that more in the next step. If you want students to assess themselves as well, or just peers, or would you like them to do both? So I can select both here. And the next thing is the method of assessment, and this is what makes the tool really customizable. So you can do a guided feedback, which is basically questionnaires created from rubrics or criteria, so the students can answer questions, and I'll show you how those questions look. Or you can click free annotations, which is people can leave comments on pieces of work of their peers, or you can do both. And there's other settings here that you can choose. You can make it anonymous, just make giving anonymous, receiving anonymous, or both anonymous. So there's multiple options. I'll make it all anonymous. Yeah, and then I'm going to go to step 3. And this is the guided feedback, where we create questions which we want students to answer about either their team members or a piece of work. You can add a section, so if this is about teamwork, you can add multiple sections, and there's questions. So how would you describe your team member? And you've got 3 options: either an open text response, where you can minimum or a maximum character count, or you could do a numerical scale. So so you can make it a 0 to 10 or 1 to 5, or give a rating, or you can give a multiple choice, which is usually what a rubric can translate into.
Sorry, Shad, can we just go back up to the text box? I'll just explain to everyone when the case for using each one. So we use a text-based response. This is more an open-ended response when you want to give something sort of that it's really qualitative feedback. We found this works really effectively when you're looking for something. If you have a structured template for how you want someone to provide feedback, because we talked about before how important it is to actually for students to know exactly what quality feedback looks like and how to give it. So we found providing an exemplar of what sort of things you should be giving feedback upon, what you're looking for, and how to word feedback is really important. A lot of our students, particularly students I found in the School of Education, which I work, they're really eager to give feedback. They're not quite sure exactly the exact areas and way to phrase their feedback in a constructive way. So we talk about developmental feedback. So we have some examples we can share later on of templates, which will help guide your students into giving that feedback in a way that is most useful to actually improve outcomes the next time. Because that's why feedback becomes assessment when we actually enact it, when we put it into action. I mean, this is Patrick Griffin's work. Someone who works at the University of Melbourne Assessment Research Centre. We're trying to design a tool that actually does this, puts this into action. Numerical scales. This is not something that I use too much with my students, but it is useful if you wanted to quantify how many references has someone used, and you wanted to easily find out a number. That's a good way of getting a count. The one that I find the most useful is, if you scroll down, is the rubric editor. And if you had for your indicators of quality, if you provided a series of steps, so Shad's he's been quite cheeky putting those down because he knows that drives me nuts, but that's okay. As a teaching assessment, as I do, find out we want to have descriptors of quality. So you'd have steps A, B, C, and D in your rubric. So we want it to be developmental. So what's the first thing they can do is, do they turn up to group meetings? Yes. Then step B, have they done their assigned task beforehand? It's really structuring our students into developing a skill set. We want them to be able to see what they can do and where to next. What's the next thing they need to do to improve the quality of a skill or piece of content knowledge?
Yep. Once you've set that up, so you just set it once, and then you can duplicate it and you can use it for your future assessments as well. And then in the roadmap, we're just working on creating a library of different templates as well. I'm just going to go to the next step, and this is uploading students. So you can just export a list of students from your learning management system, and then just 3-click upload it here. So I'm just going to upload a student list I've created earlier. Yeah, and it uploads all my students. And on the right side, I have a feedback relationship, which is how many peers should a student evaluate, and I can pick one, so then one student just gives feedback to the other, or I can pick more. So if I do 3, there's more students. And we're just working on the ability to drag and drop as well. When you upload the Excel, you have the ability to create custom relationships, or you can randomize it, whatever you prefer. Yep, so once I've set all my students, I'm going to go. Yes.
Sorry, just to explain the feedback relationships, this is who's giving feedback to who. So we talk about a relationship. So you can see that in the relationship 3, stat 10, stat 9, stat 8 will all be giving feedback on themselves because we selected self-feedback, but also feedback on each other as well. Just to clarify what that means.
So once I've set up those relationships, I'm just going to go on to the next step and set my dates, when they should submit, and when the submission should end, or I can choose it to be optional, and then I can set time as well. Feedback dates, when you want them to start and end feedback, or I can choose no time limit, and when do you want the feedback to be released, or I can choose release immediately.
This is a good time to jump in and say, on the right-hand side, we found there's a lot of research around students and academics needing information at the point of need. So we've got the best practice guide, but it tries to explain the best way of structuring each step as we go. And this is based around research, but it's also based around, our practical experiences of going into institutions and setting these sort of tasks up. Oh, I got nice. Thank you for a good explanation, Matt. I like the best practice guide. There we go. That's very nice.
That's it. And again, it's very customizable. So one of the options we give is every faculty, every teaching and learning unit, they can have their own version. Because what we've seen in practice is usually academics get a PDF lecture at the start of the term, and no guidance throughout the semester when they're actually creating the assessment. So this is a good way to give on the feedback when they're creating the assessment. So once I've done everything, I've put my task, I've given the settings, created rubric questions and uploaded students and scheduled, I'm done. So I'm just going to confirm, look at all the options again, make sure everything's okay. And then I can either save it as a draft or publish it right away. So I'm going to publish this one. And once it's published, I'm going to log in back as a student, and I'm going to show what a student interface looks like. So this is the unit. I've just created a CSU demo, and it's published now. Okay. So again, feel free to ask questions. I'm just going to log out now and log in back as a student. So this is my student interface. So again, we make it very intuitive. It tells you on the side what you need to do. So from the left-hand side, click Find Your Assessment and click View Details so you can see all your units. And you just click on View Detail. I'll come up here. I've got 3 options to submit a file, give feedback, and read feedback. So the first one is submitting a file. And again, we've used literature for. We've seen if you ask students, what would you like most feedback on? And they get to pick, then usually they're better at giving feedback as well, and it's a bit more focused. And I can go in and attach my draft. Yep, and my file is uploaded successfully, and I can always resubmit if I like. Do you have anything to add, Matt? Happy to go.
I think I'm not sure everyone else. Like the resolution on my iMac has got it's cutting off the bottom of the screen there. Just the zoom bar's gone over the top, so I'm not sure if everyone else can see the buttons down the bottom. But so maybe you'd just like to walk us through the buttons. There's a upload file, submit feedback, and then there's receive feedback as well down the bottom there. It's just sorry, Shaz, this is covered by the zoom bar down the bottom.
Okay, I'm seeing it on my screen, guys.
Oh, you are? Okay, that's great. Yeah, it's just the Zoom interface going over the top of your web browser. That's fine. If everyone else can see, that's fine. Thanks, Shaz.
Yeah, I can see if I go to 50%.
Oh, great. There we go.
Yeah.
Yep. So again, for people, if anyone's having any issues, there's 3 big buttons on the right. There's a submit button where you upload your files, the give feedback and read feedback. And when I click submit, it asks me what would I like most feedback on and explains that to me. And then my file is submitted. So the next thing I'm going to do is go and give feedback. So once I give feedback, so my peer is not submitted, so I can see all my peers on top and scroll through them, but they have not submitted a file. Then I can go and rate myself because I just upload a file. So we'll use that as an example, but I can go back on top and pick my other peers once they've submitted a file. Once you come in, so there's 2 things. One is leaving annotations. So there's a bar on top and different options on how you would like to leave comments. So I'll let Matt explain our green, yellow, and red system.
This is my favourite feature. We're looking at ways to cross-cultural ways for our students to be able to annotate diagrams and also to provide analytics for our staff, for our teaching staff. So we use the green academic as constructive praise. So the idea being something that you think addresses the criteria of the task, saying this is, you've done well, you've shown me this, showed this. We want to phrase stuff not as in personal self feedback, as feedback to the person, but feedback on the task to the person, about showing explicitly stating what they've done well. we've got the yellow as a caution, which we also talk about as a think about. So here's something else that might be problematic, something you might want to think about with your work. And the red is an area of challenge. That could be something as secretarial skills, as far as like type, spelling mistake, or something that's awkward and needs to be rephrased, or it could be something that could be factually incorrect. What we can actually do is we can actually track the number of green, yellow, and red pins, so you can get feedback, and you can get that early warning as a formative tool. We can actually see whether one particular student has a certain percentage or a ratio of red pins. So we know, in my context, I work with a lot of students who haven't been at university for a long time. They've come back to do a postgrad certification, and we use this as a way to help identify students who need help with referencing. For example, the red pins, the reference list, if someone's getting a lot of red pins in the reference list, we know this person needs an intervention on how to reference according to, we use APA 6th edition. So it just really gives us data for teaching. We use assessment for teaching. It informs what we do at an early stage. It gives us that early warning to be able to address problems before they come up, for past the point of no return. So yes, favorite feature.
Okay. So once you've given free annotations and left comments on pieces of work, you can either do it by itself, or you can get guided feedback, which is the questions that I set earlier before on the right-hand side. So you can either do them separately or together. So, and this has a character count, so I can select that and then rating the skill, and then it comes with a star. So this is what I would like most feedback on. So it just highlights that this is an important question. I can choose a point. Once I do that,
sorry, Shahid.
Okay.
One of my other favorite things about this screen is you can see both the document and the questions, the guided questions, the prompts at the same time. A lot of tools, surprisingly, you can't do that. So students have to kind of remember what they've seen as far as the document, or they have to have multiple windows open. So they can actually see, have a look, review the work, and then review their annotations, and then have a look at the questions and respond to the prompts.
Yep, so I can choose the option here as well, and then I've submitted my feedback, and then I get to see all the comments. I can jump onto those comments quickly as well, and I click here, and I can submit this, and my feedback has been submitted, and I can do that for my other peers as well. Yep, so they obviously haven't submitted a file yet, but I can answer their questions, and then once they've submitted a file, I can come back and answer that.
Shah, do you want to talk about the School of Optometry, how they use this to provide group feedback without having a document uploaded? Because there's not always going to be a document.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll actually just go and show that by changing on the teacher side. So you can also do it without a document. So if I do that, sorry, I'll just quickly go and change the assessment. So I can go modify, so I can edit it if I feel like the annotation of document is not working. I can just update it and just keep it to guided feedback. So if I do that, then when I go back as one, yep, I can see my CSU demo, same thing. I'll go and give feedback, and I'll just see the question. So I won't see the document anymore. So one of the trials that we've done start of this year was with School of Optometry at Deakin, and they didn't want any feedback on process, any product, so not on a piece of document, but just teamwork as a question, so you can answer questions about your peers. Yeah. So, yeah. And then likewise, you can use to only document as well if that's what you prefer. So it is quite customizable in how you'd like it. Yeah. And yeah, I can continue giving feedback from my other peers as well. Yeah. Yeah, so that was a full circle of how a teacher creates an assessment, and then how does it look on the student side, on different ways you can get students to respond to the rubric. And then if I log in back as a academic, I'll get to see analytics around all the inputs. So, yep, so I've seen one student has submitted, so that was the file, and I can go view, and it'll show me each annotation, the guided feedback, and how many feedback's been given. I can export it. I'll get charts on how many annotations have been left. I can export it as Excel file, so they'll come out as an Excel, and then you can use it as scoring purposes. Yep, it'll give you an exact count. And you can go and look at individual student as well, who's given feedback and who hasn't. So it'll show you if someone submitted, someone's given feedback or read feedback. Yeah. Anything you'd like to add, Matt? But yeah, otherwise that was the end of what it looks like from both ends.
I think let's throw it open to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Questions, comments, feedback.
Yeah, so please, folks, please feel free to ask Matt and Shahid questions, whether it's the educator interface or the student interface. Any comments on the design, functionality, feel free.
We have had a wealth of cases now. We have tried some pretty creative uses of the tool to stretch it, see how far it can go. As far as, we do want to have a tool that responds to the need of the unit. So actually, we don't want people to have to change their tasks too much. We want our tool to be able to fit into and improve existing practices within units. So if you have a case or something you think you might want to use this for, chances are we've done something similar at this stage, or we always love a challenge. So let us know if you have anything you think you'd like to do.
Kathy McMullen, I've got a question about motivation of students through a session. I run a postgrad leadership and teams subject. I only took it over last year, and I've got groups of about 8 to 10 working across the session. I could see a role for this where they just use it on a regular basis, maybe a weekly basis, and I'd have a bank of questions about different things like conflict in the team, role sharing, all that kind of thing, where they would self-assess and then and group assess and share it within the group. So it wouldn't be attached to assessment. The assessment is an individual task or 2 individual tasks, major tasks they do, but it might keep them focused during the session on different things. And I think it could be a great tool for that. I'm just wondering if anyone's had any experience, do they get sick of doing it? Like, is my optimum number 3, 5, 6, or do they just really love it, and would they keep coming back for more? Because I think people really like those short kind of quizzes about their own behaviour and the group's behaviour.
I think that's a great idea. I think I'd structure it into into the unit as a weekly activity. Because it's mobile compatible as well, we can so they can do this on their phone, that sort of thing. So I'd allow maybe 5-10 minutes at the end.
Yep.
To do a self-reflection. I think if you guide them through, and I'd probably use a rubric. You could use the rubric to sort of guide some of the questions, then have a text response at the end where they can really say, is there anything else? And use it as a tool for setting goals for next week, because it's a weekly iteration. So you want to improve the actual skill. You want to set a goal at the end and then check that goal.
Okay, yep. Because it's an area where there's a lot of things. There's a lot of books with existing, they're not called rubrics, but, in a sense you're using rubrics. So there's plenty of material out there to just pick up and tailor. But, okay, so it doesn't lose its novelty if it's embedded. It just becomes more habitual.
I think so. I think reflection, we know that like regular professional reflection is important in growth. We know that as far as, especially to leadership, we talk about reflecting on practice in teaching is huge.
Yeah.
So it could also form the basis of if they groups meet weekly, which they do, and they're pretty much motivating, but they could use their individual reflections for a discussion, or if I do my online discussions, the material from that actually provides a lot of good stimulus to those discussions, I would think.
What you could do is download the Excel spreadsheet of all their results, de-identify them, just delete the name column, and just share those. People can reflect on each other's goals for the next following session. And you could look at sort of like we talk about enablers and blockers, what would actually help, what would actually help you achieve that goal, and what sort of supports and scaffolds you'd have to put in place, and what areas are a challenge they might encounter. That would be a fascinating discussion, particularly the leadership class.
Yeah. Maybe I can. It's a session 2 subject, so maybe I can catch up and talk a bit more with whoever's on the team about that.
Sorry, Kathy, I'll just add, are you able to still see my screen?
Yes.
Yep. So yeah, I'll just quickly show you a similar thing like the academics has done. So I don't have data here just because of confidentiality, but I did help them set it up so I can show you the structure. And they did exactly what you're saying. So they did it over 6 weeks. So they have 2 campuses, Burwood and Orm Ponds. And in both the campuses, every week, he actually did something interesting. So he has a tutorial every Monday. So he even used the tool for an attendance purpose. So he used to give them a code, and right after the tutorial on Monday, you had to go in and submit this feedback. So you could only do it if you attended the tutorial. So that kind of kept that engaging loop that, gave an incentive for students to attend the tutorial. And then when they went in, they were doing this here, like in that 3 days.
More stick.
Yeah, so they start on Monday, and the feedback gets over. So this was on 2nd, and it gets over on 4th, and then on the Friday they get to see. So over the weekend they can reflect about different things.
Okay.
Yep, and they're different groups, and they just give feedback to each other. So it wasn't, it was just questions that they answered.
Okay, what was that subject number? I'd just be interested to see the subject outline, the kind of work they're doing. Is that a...
Yeah, it's a nanotechnology subject.
Right. Can you go back to the previous screen? I'll just HM 201.
Yeah, if you look it up. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So he's been a quite early adopter for you, so we could even potentially do some calls with Deakin if you want to have a chat with them on how they've been using it. Yeah.
Great, thank you. It's good timing to be looking at this now.
Yeah, Kathy, that's what we thought, because we thought if anyone wanted to have a go at this for next session, you need to be thinking about how that's going to integrate into your subject, obviously, and you're doing your prep for that now or in the next few weeks. Okay, guys, there's a question here in the chat. How does CollabHero sit within the learning management system?
So this is Shahed's area. Oh, are you muted?
Sorry. Yeah. Can everybody hear me? Sorry, I'm speaking with while it's mute. So at this point, we are just working university to university. So we do integrate with Desire to Learn. For CSU, what we're looking at is to partner with 1 or 2 academics so that we get an understanding on what's the best way to do those integrations. Unfortunately, without having a use case, it's just a bit hard sometimes to know what's the ideal kind of integrations. At this stage, there is no integration, but we'd like to work together and then find different ways we can.
Yes, hi guys, it's Nicole. Can you hear me?
Yes, Nicole.
Okay, great. So this is looking really good. I'm very impressed. Lots of functionalities and application there. I have used something similar before, and the big problem I had was when students did not submit, or some did. Now, do you have a workaround of that where you can manually override the automatic allocation? You're laughing, Matt.
I've had the same problem in the past. Is it, Nicole?
Okay. Yes, it is. Yeah.
I feel your pain. Trust me.
Yeah, that was it. Peer review, I don't want to ever see that again. It was just a nightmare with extensions and people not submitting and then people not having anything to review.
How many students did you have?
About 40 or something.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, I a slightly larger number. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So can you show us how to deal with that, or is there a workaround?
Yeah, I'll show.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Nicole. So 100%, that's one of the major issues. We've just finished a study with 4 students, and we had the similar kind of problem with that kind of large numbers. Few of the workarounds, again, starting from a conservative approach. So one of the things that we've done which worked is we send automated notifications to the students. So coming close to the deadline, the system sends an email. So that's seen a bit of uptake. The other thing is just making the uploading process super simple compared to other tools where like we even tried to see like if you're doing PMR or other things, you have to go 6-7 clicks. So we've reduced that submission process quite a bit. So the trial that we did with UNSW, 50 students, we just had 10% not submit, which I'm not an academic, but I was told was a pretty good number for peer review. So we didn't have that submission process. The other thing that we're kind of working on now is being able to do a drag and drop. Drag and drop students. So if there is a group of a feedback relationship where 2 people have not submitted, you can put them in a different group. And that's how we've done it in UNSW. So the assessment requirement was you have to review 2 papers and then 10% didn't submit. That meant that there was a number of students in a relationship group of 4 people where 2 students did not submit, so they only had 1 paper to review. Then we just merged 2 groups, if that makes sense. So everyone had that option of reviewing 2 papers, and then some people missed out on feedback. And that kind of solved the problem of everyone having 2 papers to review. But that's something we're thinking about and looking into what are the other ways we can kind of mitigate that. I was even looking into, so one of the things that PMR kind of looked into, and we're looking into that, is having submission papers and then distributing it instead of just the student being paired, and then having the functionality of if they're non-submitters, you can just pull them out in a way. So that's something we're definitely thinking about.
Yeah,
we've built an algorithm to do that. The issue is when you set up assigned groups, and I guess it's human error in the sense that if they haven't submitted, it makes it difficult on everyone else. That's one thing with peer review. So like if you're having a meeting and other people don't turn up, you can't have the meeting. It's the same thing with peer review. So what we could do is you could have it so you can set groups and then change to automatically redistribute it if people don't submit. But then often there's a reason why people set these groups in a certain way. Like, I mean, there are, sort of like, you understand your tutorial groups really well and the dynamics within that. There might be reasons why you don't want 2 students to be together. So that's another case we've come up with. So you sort of have to be able to set those rules that student A and student C won't assess each other. But if student B doesn't turn up, doesn't submit their assignment, then you have to be able to intelligently adjust that. So that's what the drag and drop interface is going to be, hopefully solve a lot of that, to be able to sub students in and out.
All right, so that's coming, is that right? Is that what you're saying?
That's what our roadmap, yeah. It's busy working on that right now.
Yeah, because that to me was my biggest barrier, was that managing that, and it became a nightmare.
I hear you. Me too.
Okay, cool.
Okay, do we have any other questions? We've got about 9 minutes left. So if anyone has any burning questions, please ask. Or if there's something about the interface that you want Shahid or Matt to talk about again or show you a little bit more detail, feel free.
Sounds like happy customers.
Yes, it is. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Look, I must say, I'm. This is the 3rd or might be the 4th time I've seen this interface, and I must say, every time I see it, and I see a demo, I'm liking it more and more.
No, that's good.
I like the best practice guide as well. I really like the way you've designed this, and so both with the student and the academic view, it's a really smart way of contextualizing what's required of people, whether it's the educator designing or whether it's the student responding. Now, I know, Julie, I don't like to put you on the spot here, but you have just started to have a little bit of a play with CollabHero. Do you have any just comments to make at this stage? I think it's early days because you've only been playing with it in the last few days.
Yeah, it's pretty early days, but look, I think it's got lots of facility, and I've only just implemented it for one small task, and it's really, look, it's nearly the end. Well, it's just after their first main assignment. I asked them for this optional sort of peer review on a group project. It's not an accessible task, so I've had 15 out of 48, I think, respond, and that will probably be it, because, you know, as we all know, it needs to be designed into the whole learning structure of the unit, or the subject, sorry. No, it's been really good to be able to play around with it and implement it. So I encourage people to jump in and have a go there and just try different things. If we all try something different, you know, we can come together again soon and compare notes and just help each other.
Yeah, Julie, I'm thinking that you just, even with your 15 students, you'll get feedback from them about the usability of the interface, and I think that's probably an important step. And then actually thinking through the design of the task and then how it's to be managed and the design for the student experience. I think that's probably where it would be nice for anyone who might be interested in having a play with this to come together as a group at some stage and just sort of brainstorm some of your thinking, crowdsource some intelligence. Kathy, you might be interested in that. I don't know if you're interested, Nicole.
I can see a few people in the window, in the chat window, have said they want to begin looking at having a trial, hopefully. I don't know if you can see the chat. But we would love to talk to people one-on-one.
Yeah, look, I think if anyone is interested, probably the first port of call is to shoot me an email, and then probably what would be good is just bringing interested parties together with both you, Matt, and Shahed, and we just have another Zoom meeting to just sort of just have an initial chat about what people might be thinking in terms of using it. So shoot me an email, folks, and if you want me to try to pull together a meeting in the next couple of weeks, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that'd be a very good next step. And just to add, I think we could even do Zoom and then set up for real tasks as well. Walk you through tasks, and people can play around that way as well. I think that'll be a good kind of action step as well to do.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Shahed. I think you were just breaking up a little bit there, but that's fine. I think we can follow up via email. Now, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'd just like to ask, is there any other questions or comments that people would like to make before we finish up today? Well, I think that just goes to show, guys, that you've actually done a very good demo. And thanks, Matt, for the brief in terms of providing the thinking behind the design and how the research literature has been informing what you've been doing with your design, as well as just your own, practical experience. I think it's really nice because, as you say, a lot of tools are designed by technology people, and you're not getting that same kind of, thinking in the design from an educator's perspective. So I think that's really great. And Julie's just added in the chat that thanks to Matt and Shad for being so responsive and supportive while she's been playing with the tool. So that's great. We can see that you're both really passionate about this and obviously very keen to be continually developing it to best meet people's needs. And so from our perspective, when we've been working with people with different tools, we like our academics to have an opportunity to come to the table and talk to people developing these tools so that their needs can be considered and possibly met, you know? So that's the power of the collaboration.
I mean, that's why I got involved. Exactly right. That's spot on.
Can I just, Lynn, sorry?
Yeah.
Can I just plug thank you for Tim, as I've done before, because Tim has actually seen us quite a bit through our journey. We've met him, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago almost, with the different kind of projects as well. So, so Tim's been very kind to wait till we've come to a good place to have bigger chats. So thank you, Tim.
Yeah, no, it's been good to kind of actually get you guys to this stage, to kind of put you in front of people and kind of show this. Because it's been good to watch the kind of whole evolution of the product and how things have kind of changed. And I think it's kind of at its point now where it is a really interesting tool for a lot of people to do a lot of different things, which I guess a lot of current stuff doesn't do. So I think you'll feel a lot of gaps in people's kind of tools.
Yeah, thanks. And Joy's just responded in the chat saying that it looks like a very useful tool, and I can see many applications. Now, there is the IUT conference that's happening in Port Macquarie. Is that the end of June, is it? Or into July, sorry. June. 26th of June. Thanks, Kathy. I think there will be a few of us there. So I agree that might be a good opportunity to even try to just bring together a community of practice face-to-face. But I think probably a good start is to get together with another Zoom meeting probably within a couple of weeks, especially if someone wanted to be playing around with this next session with their students, even if it's not involving formal assessment, but it's just providing a nice backbone to support your the collaborative and critical reflection work of your students as they're working week by week through your subject. So look, I'd like to finish today's session now. I'll close today's session. So thank you, all those people who attended. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the feedback. And thanks to both Matt and Shahid for actually, I think, presenting a really comprehensive demo that's really showing an interesting tool. I think that does, I agree, has a lot of potential. So
thank you.
Thanks guys, and we'll follow up via email. Don't forget, if anyone's interested, just shoot me an email and we'll go from there.
Wonderful. Thanks you.
Okay. Thanks folks. All the best.